Not yet.
You ready?
Not yet. Okay.
The Parma Heights City Council work session will come to, of April 26, 2021, will come to order at 6:30 PM. Present are all of council with the exception of Council Member Walsh, Service Director Patton, Economic Development Director Sivas, and our clerk. The first item on the agenda is the review of the Healthy Urban Tree Canopy Grant. Mr. Sivas?
All right, Madam President. What I did was, I got an email from Councilman Stavoli with some questions. And so I tried to do the best I could, not being an arborist, and I got back to our tree arborist, who responded to the questions to the best of his abilities, a professional arborist, 17 years experience. And he actually teaches classes and everything in regards to planting trees and issues with trees. And so I guess what I'm here is the ball's in your court. If you guys have issues or concerns, I would like to try to address them any way I can. As I said in the beginning, the trees, the species, where they're going was all part of the Parma Heights Tree Planting Master Plan, and I followed that plan with regards to placement of the species at the locations. So from
Okay.
there, I would just like to, try to do the best I can here. I know there's some stuff here may not be what you want to hear, but it's the truth, it's the facts with regard to trees, so.
Okay, our Councilmember Stavoli?
I guess, based on the arborist report, John Palmer's report, he had, in a paragraph, I believe it's page 2 or 3, depending, he had mentioned that I'll read it, it says, "I know of some cities that actually have specifications that any sidewalk areas along trees are to have a 6 to 8 inch base of gravel. Most specs say 4 inches under new sidewalks." And Mr. Sivas, I don't know if this is you or Mr. Patton that would need to respond on that. Is that something that we would need to add on any future sidewalks? Because I don't know what the recommendation is for now for sidewalks, if it's 4 inches, if it's 6 inches, or if it's 8 inches.
Well, it's 4 inches of concrete, but it's not 4 inches of base, it could, depending on what it is,
Right, and I guess that's the question. And based on what he was saying, it seems that if we do have a 6 to 8 inch base of gravel, that we have a better chance of a tree not disrupting the sidewalk. He doesn't say that it's the end all be all, and
Right.
I get that. But are we gonna be able to do everything in our power going forward?
Right.
To make sure that, should we be planting 6 to 8 inches of gravel when, and I don't know what we're doing now, so maybe we should start with that.
Well, what we could do is that we could there is some building things I have to bring forward here that we want to change. So we could bring something forward on the sidewalks and make that part of the code in this city.
Okay.
So when we're putting a new sidewalk in, we could say that. You gotta have a 6 inch base or an 8 inch base along the sidewalk, then the concrete for placement. We could do that.
And that's what I'm getting at. It's
Sure.
anything we can do to do as much
Yeah.
future-proofing as we can.
Right.
So that we don't end up with sidewalks heaved and
Right.
driveways heaved and everything else heaved.
No, we could do that.
A lot of it, from what I had spoken to John too, is that, and then the other thing is how you initially are planting them. So none of us were privy to what was done 50, 60 years
Right.
ago. And sometimes if you look at them, you can see
It
they
seemed
weren't done right.
pretty shallow, right.
So, I don't know how to plant trees, so I brought in a professional arborist. I had meetings with Mr. Patton, with Mr. Sidoti, who's been city tree consultant for probably over 30 years, you know what I mean? And he'll be out there in the field too. Mr. Palmer is gonna be out there on and off. Mr. Palmer is actually gonna, and Mr. Grace, with Grace Brothers, had told me Mr. Palmer contacted him last week. And they're gonna be doing videos, like chats with all his employees, all the guys that are planting, to make sure over the proper planting of these trees, so that we get them in the ground the right way off the bat. and that's what we're trying. Right now, I mean, the biggest hurdle's gonna be, once we get them in there, is getting the residents to take care of them. And what we've done now is we've been physically going out, driving locations, you know, and we kind of physically look at the street, see what it looks like first, because they lost a lot of trees in that area. And then where it's sparse is where we're really trying to we're knocking on doors, dropping literature, you know, and we're telling people, if you don't want the tree, please call, otherwise you're gonna get it. We've been getting some good feedback from people that want them, and then there's people who don't want them, you know what I mean? But our goal is, what we're trying to do is put trees in that people are gonna take care of.
correct.
You know, and not waste money, you know, and that's the hardest thing, is getting people to take care of them. And we try to explain to them, if we're talking to them, that the trees are gonna come with gator bags. And they're about this tall. It's a green zip-up bag. It wraps around the tree, and it's literally, it fills with water. So all you have to do is go out there, fill that bag, let it go, and I think you don't have to water for a week or so. It just slowly keeps filtering down into the roots, getting water where it needs to be, you know. And also, Councilman Rounds, I guess that would affect a big chunk of your area, and Councilwoman Danzig. Just so you guys know, if you get calls, because that's where we really targeted hit, you know. But more questions, whatever, if there's anything. Well, the other thing I could note, as to what Dennis said, he was talking with regard to, you know, in the future, looking at the building codes or whatever we want to do. And I'm sure we can pull some codes up from other cities if they're doing this, to see what they do, you know, for the future.
Well, I'll pull those, and when I bring these other code changes forward, I'll have that too, for the sidewalks.
Take a look at it, I'll see what it is.
Just so make it consistent if we're gonna do it throughout, you know?
And if, you know, if this grant that's out here, there should be opportunities next year, I believe. There's gonna be, I think, for the next 5 years total. What I could try to do there is do what we have done with some of our other planning, and and it is very eligible to apply for we update a tree master plan. So we can try to make that a focus next year. Let's go out there, let's update it, you know what I mean, and do I think the other plan was done in the 60s.
Right, and I
You
guess
know?
that leads me to my next question. Since that plan was done in the 60s, the arborist is still signing off on these trees that
Yeah.
are still gonna
Mhm.
be okay?
Mhm.
Because there's some areas of the city that have had trees planted on them, and I know it was way before our time, but some of them, I don't even know what those are, that they almost look like barbed wire sticking up in the air, you know, in some of the streets.
Yeah. Now, these trees were done by John Litton, oh my God, Benke, that's who did the plans for the city back in the 60s. So Benke's a big landscape architectural firm. You know, they're a big outfit. And then they had the city's tree arborist at that point in time too, was involved in planting these trees. So at that time, these were good tree planting species, and
Right.
what you want to do, that I've learned from like our the tree consultant too, is you want to try to mix it up. You know, you don't want to go out and say, well, the best tree is a honeysuckle, and we're just going to plant honeysuckles throughout the whole city. If you do that, and for whatever reason, there's a disease like that emerald ash borer, it struck the entire state of Ohio, you wipe out your whole city. So that's where they have a plan where they do tracks of different trees, and they mix them throughout. You may have sugar maples here and here and here, but they mix everything up in case, at some of the longer streets even, they'll mix species in. You know what I mean? They had different colors on that map, and I believe that's just for that reason. It's also for aesthetics. They're there for aesthetics, to make make the real estate look nicer, and, you know, that's it. So, I mean, I spoke to Mr. Palmer with regard to a master plan, if we should desire to go forward with one next year, and he said he'd be honored to work with us. He said he's quite capable of doing a master plan for us, you know. So that's if council's desire, you know, if everybody wants to do it down the road, we could definitely go for it. We'll apply and we could go for it, you know, for future generations, and, you know, make sure that it's addressed.
Do you have anything else? Councilwoman? Oh,
Getting back to the base, the gravel bases, If the specs are 4, we're gonna change it to 6 or 8, what kind of expense is that gonna add to the residents who have to replace that sidewalk?
Well, there'll be an added expense.
Well, I know that, that's
The
my
stone.
question is,
It's a good
Well, all
question.
depends on what kind of stone they put underneath it, you know? I mean, some of them put like a 57 slag underneath it, that's kind of cheap. Others will put a screening, you know, it all depends.
so you don't regulate that, you just
No,
tell them the base has
depending on
to
what it
be
is,
whatever?
no. Most of the stone, most of the contractors all use pretty much the same thing. And a lot of them put a screening on the top, you know, but they'll use a 57, or depending on how deep it is, they'll use a 304. It's a big, heavy, big pieces of stone. And they'll drop that first, and then they'll layer on top of it. But I'll go and see what other cities have, and then I'll bring something forward that makes sense. But I'll call some other cities and see what they got.
I'm kind of just concerned about the cost to the residents.
Yeah,
You know,
it'll be a
that's-
little bit, but it's,
Going from 4 to 6 to 8 is a big amount
yeah, but it won't
when you're
be,
building something.
yeah. It will be an expense, for sure. I just don't know what it is, because some people will be putting 1 or 2 pieces of sidewalk in. There's not too many people replacing all their sidewalks anymore that we see. Usually there are 1 or 2 sidewalks.
I didn't even know we had a tree master plan.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Why were we never, has anybody ever seen it?
It's in the safe. It was, what I
No,
did was I
this-
found the tree ordinance,
Yeah, this master
and
plan's
it
been
was
in
folded
place.
up. It's attached to the tree ordinance.
Yeah.
So she pulled it out of the records for me. It's as big as that TV. And then all the streets, the whole, it's a gigantic city map, and then all the streets are color-coded with, there's an index at the bottom, and it's all color-coded, what, the species of the tree and where it goes. So that's from the, I don't know the exact date, but it's 1960s. We had other plantings, and they used that same plan too, years ago, back in the 90s, I know that. So,
And if they don't want a tree, they will not get a tree, right?
correct. That's what we're counting on. Don't lie to us, just tell us no. If you don't want it, it's no problem.
So where are you gonna go with those extra ones then? Are you gonna look somewhere else around here? Or are
Yeah,
you gonna
well-
strictly stay over in,
At that point in
2
time,
and
I'm gonna
4.
talk to the county, but I think we could look elsewhere. If we got them, you know what I mean, and get them a good home where someone wants one, that's the idea too, so.
did the county have a specific
Well, they asked me.
requirement of why you went there only? Or-
Oh, absolutely not.
Okay, so
They
you
have.
just looked over there and said, they're losing a lot of trees, we're just
No,
gonna go
I
there."
didn't look over there. I had a meeting with Mr. Patton and Mr. Sidoti, and Mr. Sidoti's recommendation was due to the large amount of ash trees that were lost in the city. That was like the heaviest hit, was that whole
Right,
geographic
well,
quadrant.
that's what I'm saying.
That's
Couple
why.
hundred.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah,
was saying.
that's what we went after, yeah. But what I'm saying is, if I could go outside that, if there's extra trees, if it turns out, we don't know what's gonna happen when they start planting them. People don't respond, say, you never told me anything, and then they say, take it out. And we're not gonna put a tree in if they don't want it, so. We'll have to see. What I'm trying to do is go after more locations than not enough, just to cover our bases,
And if they want one somewhere else, because I did have a call, somebody wanting a tree,
Yeah.
but they're not in that area.
Yeah.
Still, let's get the address.
Well,
Yeah,
I told
I
her,
would
give
get
me-
it just in case, you know what I mean? Get
Okay.
the address to me.
All
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. As long as you know it's somebody's gonna give it a good home, and we got them,
Well-
we gotta do that, man.
Well, most people
Well-
that ask for the trees
And who
Like
will
them.
take care of
Yeah.
the tree.
What'd you
That's
say,
the
Director
difference.
Patton, what'd you say?
Most people that ask for trees will take care of it. They will water
Right.
it, It's the people that don't want anything to do with the tree and always telling me to cut their trees down, and there's nothing wrong with them.
Right.
Which we don't do that either.
And we're taking pretty much as much precautionary measures as a community and putting them in the ground with regards to any soil he's gonna be putting in, any mulch he's gonna be putting in. The trees they're gonna come with tree guards to help with the deer problem. They're gonna have gator bags, they're gonna be staked with oak stakes. So they're being very well professionally planted. I think the key is all people have to do is water. That's all. If they just would water, the trees stand a huge chance of, taking up. Once they root, they're done, they're gone.
What sizes are these? I'm just curious.
They're
Are
inch
they-
and 3/4 caliber, so they're probably about this thick. They're probably about 6 foot, 7 foot tall. You know, they're good-sized trees.
Were you done, Councilwoman Everett, for now?
Yep.
Okay. Councilman Haas?
So a question and a comment. The question is, I was looking over the plan for where they're going to be located, and you've already explained where that came from, so I get it. But just a point, I noticed that there's a small number that are going to the pocket parks.
Yeah.
Do we feel that's enough?
It may not be for right now. I'm focusing on residential streets, and I'm still waiting on the sewer district property, which I know it's very close to, it's ours. So that would be an ideal spot to start greening, you know what I mean? And that is an intention too, to, you know, if we have to, if we've got some bigger species trees and there's extra and you know, we can compile a list and service, and if not, but we'll try to put some more, spread some out in that place, in that area. Because
Okay.
we are gonna be putting a pocket park there, and there'll be a couple ornamental trees, decorative, low flowering, some kind of, probably some sort of a cherry or something like that, or a pear tree, small, but that flower and change with the seasons.
Okay, and are they still sticking to the original schedule, which calls for the planning to be completed by May the 10th?
Yeah, Mr. Grace called me Friday, and I believe he said the week of the 3rd, which is next week, he's gonna start. So I've got the lists, we're gonna put all the lists together in order for his guys, so that when they're going down the streets, they'll be going in the right direction all the way, and they have to call in and, they have to have OOPS come out and mark all the locations to make sure for gas lines, water lines, you know, electric. The same thing we did for the wayfinding, you know what I mean?
Okay.
They have to do that for safety purposes.
So
And if they find
according-
an issue, we can't put a tree there.
So according to this, you've got 4 allocated for the pocket parks.
Yeah, so you'd be 2 on each side, but like I said, depending on what happens here, we could pop a few more in.
Okay.
And also, I want to bring this up too. I received an email 2 weeks ago from Alan Seward, and he's with the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, and he is the top tree guy in the state of Ohio, or in the Cuyahoga County area, I believe. And so he was asking our opinion on more tree grants if there was availability. You know, and I said, yeah, just, you know, would you be interested? So I responded, yeah. I can't believe any community would respond no if they could get more. So I don't know what's coming down the pike here too, but maybe we could do something. You have to plan them. That's the problem, is you can't just sit on them. You could kill them, you know what I mean? So if we tried to go by, like Renee, that's, you know, that someone requests a tree, you can't leave them sit there forever. They've got to be maintained. They got to be, you know, once they're up out of that ground, they got to go in, you know, so. But if we had a tree planting program in the future, then you could take orders and purchase them, you know what I mean? Every year we could do something like that.
And then just my comment would simply be, I think it's a good idea that we go ahead for next year and try to develop some sort of plan, because if it's dating to the 60s, that's 50 years ago.
Yeah.
It's time to update it and have something new.
That's, I felt that was the only thing I had to work with, the only tool I had to work with. I would not just pull out arbitrarily and say, let's do this, this, this. I wanted something that was recommended, that was done by somebody professionally, and I felt that was the right course of action.
Thank you.
Any
Council
more
have
questions?
Yeah, does council have any other questions or comments? So you want to start planting next week?
Yeah, now, I would appreciate it if we could wrap it up tonight in the second reading,
Okay,
because
so-
I have got to get that signed contract. As long as it's signed on our part and I can get it back down to the county, we're good to go.
Okay, so you're requesting suspension on second reading?
Yeah. Hey, it's kind of it is an emergency. We got to get that contract down there to keep everything moving.
Okay, seeing no other questions or comments, thank you, Mr. Sebas, and thank you, Mr. Patton.
Thank you all for the questions, too. There's a lot of good ideas here, too, you know, so thank you.
Okay, and we'll go into our second item on the agenda regarding the governor's public meeting orders. Currently, we are meeting in person, but streaming our meetings to the public. So right now, our ability to have remote meetings or conduct meetings in this manner expires in July. However, there is legislation before the Ohio Congress to extend through the end of the year now. So I would like to open it up to council for discussion. I will let everyone know that I reached out to the finance director last week, and she is going to look into the possibility of having residents be able to remote in on the screen instead of having us stream on YouTube, which would not cost us any money. So I wanted to open it up to the rest of council to get your thoughts and input.
You mentioned the legislation that's before the governor now, is that?
Yeah, there's another, I heard recently there's another bill in front of the Ohio Congress, but I can get more information. I'll ask Mr. Picorni to get us that information. But it would extend the ability to do remote meetings through the end of the year, from what I understand.
I'd like to try and get people back in as quickly as possible. I don't know if it's worth having a discussion if we don't know if this is going to go forward or not. So I guess I'll reserve questions and comments until we get more information on that.
Yeah, and this is something that came up recently, and that's a difficulty with this, is that it keeps changing. And also, there's still a cap on the number of people for these type of meetings that are allowed to be in a room together. So we can open up and allow so many people in the room, but also we have residents that are afraid to come out during the pandemic as well. So we're trying to balance this. I still want to put it out there that we are capable of meeting remotely on the devices that were given to us as well. So with the new information that I've recently heard about, I don't know if council has any opinions or any sort of timeline. I know that we will be having more than likely some special meetings coming up and public hearings. So I didn't know if anyone, yes, Councilman Haas?
I like the suggestion that came up at our last meeting about possibly having residents come in and be in another room but be on the screen. That could be a very workable solution to allow people to come in and express their views but still keep everybody safe. I think that's an important idea.
Are there any other comments?
Excuse me.
Yes.
I agree. I think if we can get them in, but I would still like to meet like we have been. I don't think our meetings should go remote. We've been doing this since the pandemic started and through the worst of the pandemic. And now that things are looking like they're going to turn a little bit, I think we should just continue being live per se, I guess.
Agree.
Okay, but it is costing us money.
Well,
To
and this is
stream.
what she's going to
Yeah.
look into.
So, Mr. Picorni, thank you for coming in and joining us. I recently heard of a bill before down in Columbus that would extend the capability of remote meetings through the end of the year. I wasn't sure if you were aware of anything, but if we can get information for council on that, that would be great.
I just heard about this this morning. It came out through a Ohio Municipal League bulletin that came out on Friday. And the the virtual meetings as we conduct them now, pursuant to House Bill 404, I believe, expires on July 1st. There is now a pending bill, I think it's House Bill, Sub-House Bill 110, I believe, to extend it through the end of December 31st of 2021.
Councilman Rounds?
I think it's important for us to be as open and transparent and available to the residents as possible. And I know the way we're doing it now through streaming on YouTube gives the residents an opportunity to watch, but not necessarily interact with us or interact in a timely manner. You know, we might get an email later on after the meeting is already adjourned. The opportunity for us to still be in this room and potentially have residents come to another location where they would wait in their car until they're, you know, so there's one at a time coming in, so they're not crowding the hallway and putting their own health or at risk, but giving us an opportunity to see them to see us, have real live, face-to-face, real-time interaction, I think would be really helpful for us and them.
And you're speaking in person or like coming from another room?
If we were in here
Mhm.
and they, let's say, stepped into the council, you know, office where there was a camera that was connected to that, and so they were kind of on premise, I don't know how they can do that as easily if they were at home trying to, you know, I don't know that technology, but I'm sure it's probably available as well. But, you know, there's got to be an opportunity for them to state their name, their address, you know, speak to the agenda item that they're wishing to have, you know, an opinion about or ask a question about. But I just think it's really important for us to become available to them and them available to us as quickly as possible.
And Mr. Picorni, as far as you know, that 10-person meeting, gathering of people is still in place, correct? It still restricts us?
I believe it is.
Okay, so that's where, probably the most efficient way to have the best interaction is to do it via like a Zoom meeting or a GoTo meeting, all of us. And that is the most effective way to interact, and it's at no cost to the city. So, we can wait on the information. If you could clarify also if any change has been made in restrictions on the number of people to have in the room. Because if we want to be transparent and all we're offering is like one computer in a different room in another place at City Hall, you know, the rest of the people can't interact. And so they're missing what goes on at the entire meeting. So the most effective way to have someone present the entire time is to remote in somehow. So whether, and I'm going to go back to a conversation we had at the end of last year, whether some council members would like to come in and remote in even from this building instead of doing it from their house. But that is probably the most effective way to have people on and to see the entire meeting with no restrictions. Because if we're only allowed so many people in this room, the rest of the public has no ability to see what's going on, to interact, and so on. So that's where it's kind of, we could have people come into the building, but it's only one at a time. So, you know, if they want to see the rest of the meeting, unfortunately, they can't.
Good point.
Are there any other thoughts on this, or does council want to wait and see what we get within the next 2 weeks from Mr. Picorni?
I want to wait and see.
Okay.
I mean, that's.
Well,
me,
there's
I
a
don't know.
couple things. Whatever questions you have, I would like them reduced to writing so that they can be, you know, thoroughly examined. They should be addressed to the mayor, because the mayor is the one who has issued the order some time ago, last year, when COVID first started, that the building was closed to
Mhm.
public meetings. So this has to be, you know, discussed with the mayor. So if you get your questions in writing, we'll get you the answers back out. That would help streamline it, and it would also clarify what we need to look at.
Yeah, and I understand that the building is closed, but this is also council's meeting. So if I put in a request to look into a different capability like this, and if we decide on it, I would like to, say we all come to a conclusion that we want it done this way, I would expect that the city work with us to get it done that way, because there are meetings. So,
Well, again,
we'll put all the questions in writing
Sure.
regarding this.
okay,
And if you can get us information once, I'll send the request in on behalf of council,
Mhm.
and then once you send me the information, we'll meet again.
Fair
We'll
enough.
probably be at our next meeting. So,
Okay.
okay? All right, so with no further business, the Parma Heights City Council work session of Monday, April 26, 2021 is adjourned at 6:59 PM.